Hey there, fellow Texans. Welcome back to the James Show. It's News Talk 829.33 FM WBAP. We have a little more movement on our top story of the day, Iran versus Israel. Do we dare call it a war yet? I mean, there's definitely some acts of war that are going on. But you've also are quite aware with the pattern that we don't really go to Congress anymore and get an official declaration of war. That's just what they have in the Constitution. And who follows that dumb old document anyway? That was sarcasm there for the people who were about to fire off an angry email. But in keeping up with this, the activity is sort of diminishing by the day. There was another salvo of missiles fired from Iran into Israel yesterday. The count I see in most reports is around 30 for however accurate wartime statistics have been. And so this follows the theory that I've sort of jumped my bandwagon on and said Iran just can't keep this up. They have a limited amount of missiles. They've probably fired, I don't know if most of them, but they fired a lot, and they can't replenish them as fast as they're firing them. Plus, they're losing a whole bunch because they're tending to get blown up by Israeli missiles, and some of the delivery mechanisms have been compromised in airstrikes and whatnot too, drone strikes, who knows. So I don't think this is going to be the next forever war. We're not going to be here for 20 years like Afghanistan. But what's the next move? That's huge. I don't think anybody has the stomach for one American boot to be on the ground. This whole garbage, we're just going to send some advisors or a peacekeeping force. No, and no. But there is a little wiggle room between for escalation between that boundary and where we're at now. Now, a funny thing with the media, this happens with every conflict, every military action. Doesn't matter who's in office. This isn't them like being anti-Trump. But you almost can't blame them for asking really stupid questions in a wartime scenario. I remember all the way back in the first Gulf War, what was that, like 91, 92? Saturday Night Live did a joke where there was a press conference with Norman Schwarzkopf, and the reporters were asking ridiculous questions like, are you planning an amphibious assault? If so, where is it going to land and when? So I can't answer that, actually. So we start off the important audio of the day with Trump fielding one of those questions, and it always cracks me up because they have to ask, and you can't blame them, because if you get an answer, it's going to be the biggest headline of the day. But Trump doesn't fall for it for a second, but does offer a little bit of insight past that question.
Have you been answered questions about whether you are moving closer, or you believe the U.S. is moving closer to striking Iranian nuclear facilities? Where's your mindset on that?
I can't say that, right? You don't seriously think I'm going to answer that question? Will you strike the Iranian nuclear component? And what time exactly, sir? Sir, would you strike it? Would you please inform us so we can be there and watch? I mean, you don't know that I'm going to even do it. You don't know. I may do it. I may not do it. I mean, nobody knows what I'm going to do. I can tell you this, that Iran's got a lot of trouble.
All right, so that was a fun start. But here's the takeaway that most of the media is running with today is I put two questions back-to-back together here where he says Iran is defenseless. They got nothing going on. And if this is true, if he's just not barking out there for media narrative control purposes, that Iran has to come to the table if this is true.
Yeah, but they've suggested that they come to the White House. That's, courageous, but, it's like not easy for them to do. But they suggest, because I can't go now because of what's going on. I had to come back early from the G7, which was terrific, by the way, in Canada. Really terrific, good people.
Is there a possibility of next week or sooner that
Well, I don't know how much longer it's going to go on. I mean, they're totally defenseless. They have no air defense whatsoever. We've totally captured, we've totally captured the air, Brian.
So did you catch that? They're totally defenseless, and we've captured their airspace. That's huge. If they're totally defenseless, how does Iran keep going on? Now, I'm not saying the Ayatollahs are going to say, oh, well, you got me. I'm going to resign now and step down, and we'll have a peaceful transition of power. No, they'll come to the table, and they'll negotiate whatever it takes for them to stay in power with, as much pride as they can keep intact. But there was another fun comment that's not being played by other news outlets. I think you'd be interested in this because he says this would have never happened had he been in power. October 7th would have never happened had he been in power. Putin invading Russia I mean, Putin invading Ukraine wouldn't have happened had he been in power at the time. And then it kind of delved off. He chased the rabbit here talking about Putin. I think you'd be interested in this.
Putin would have never done it. And I spoke to him yesterday, and I said, he actually offered to help mediate. I said, do me a favor. Mediate your own. Let's mediate Russia first, okay? I said, Vladimir, let's mediate Russia first. You can worry about this later. But I think that's going to work out too. But so many people have been killed. The big thing with that one is far more people are dead than have been reported in the Ukraine, Russia. Many, many more people. A building falls down, they say nobody was hurt. So.
Ooh, did you get that? He, he has information we don't have access to. And whenever they say in the media, a building fell and no one died, he probably has someone on the ground or some intelligence apparatus that's coming back to him and saying, no, there were a bunch of people that died. Russia's lying about it because they don't want it to look bad in the media. But he doesn't want to go out and start calling out Russia. For one thing, he doesn't want to antagonize them. What does it matter to us what the body count was on a busted up building somewhere in Western Russia? But also, you don't want to compromise your sources there on information. But I think he's right. We're going to find out this was a whole lot worse whenever it's over and we get a more sober accounting of the events that have happened in both October 7th, the subsequent Gaza-Israeli war, Russia-Ukraine. This is all probably a lot uglier than we are experiencing right now. The truth is probably a lot uglier than what we see on TV. All right, coming up, my next guest, Chris Putnam. He's from the Dallas Express, but he knows some people in D.C. He has a insider's look on how much the Trump team is willing to get involved in Iran. 800-288-9227, 800-288-9227. It's News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM, WBAP. Hey there, welcome to the James Show. It's News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM, WBAP. Well, my next guest is usually on talking about local or state issues. He's the guy who runs the Dallas Express, dallasexpress.com. But Chris Putnam also happens to know people in D.C. and is pretty good at putting his finger to the wind on what's going on behind the curtain up there. And Chris Putnam, I have noticed on social media and even among my, anecdotally speaking, my friend group, how there seems to be a divide among Team Red. Some of the same people that wear the same hats, they both wear MAGA hats. One doesn't mind if we get involved in Iran. The other one wants to stay out of it at all costs. Do you sense a similar divide in the State Department? So I find that incredibly disappointing. When people talk about there's a deep state in DC that no matter who's in power, the same old game is going to keep getting played. I feel like this is a great example of that. We even have Elon Musk come through, pick out all these Doge cuts, and there's people on Team Red that don't have his back on cutting USAID. All right, we're talking with Chris Putnam from DallasExpress.com. Explain to me again, my tax dollars help fund the the No Kings protest, and in a country that doesn't have kings. That's great. That's fantastic. Well, the people are asking for cuts, and when cuts are proposed and identified and they're just not codified, it seems like the anti-cut faction is winning. Whatever internecine and civil war we have within Team Red, it is the cutters that are losing. Violently? You mean valiantly? Well, right, but Chris, I'm seeing a connection between these people who don't want the cuts and these people who are really hawkish on the Iran situation. That was my suspicion. So, what is their bit? They just pretend to be Republicans and support war and bigger government? Oh, and didn't we just see it in Austin too? Yeah. So this is Chris Putnam from DallasExpress.com. Yeah, so the same thing's happening. Republican voters who want a smaller government, they vote for Republicans and they send them to either Austin or DC, and they kind of tinker with some social issues, maybe an abortion law here or maybe a trans issue here, but they never actually cut the government. I know this is an impossible question, but Chris Putnam, what is a limited government conservative to do? Well, I would put one caveat in it. You're overall correct, but we did get the Tax Cut and Jobs Act at the end of 2017, and they at least brought a bill to vote on repealing Obamacare, and it passed in the House, and it would have passed in the Senate if John McCain historically did his little thumbs down. Just really, was that a spite to Trump, or does he really feel strongly about the efficacy of Obamacare? We'll never know because he's passed away now. But they're not even talking about getting rid of Obamacare now. I find this all very frustrating. Nope. Yeah, it was a hostage tape, wasn't it? All right, hang on. Chris Putnam, let me hit pause. We'll continue with Chris Putnam from the Dallas Express. He was embedded with some of the local protests over the weekend. He'll tell you what he saw coming up on the James Show. News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM WBAP. Hey there, welcome to the James Show, News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. I am your host, James Parker. We continue with Chris Putnam from the Dallas Express. Now, I know this isn't our top story of the day because we're kind of focused on Iran and Israel to start with, and we'll continue that in just a second. But you were embedded with some of the protests that happened in our backyard over the weekend. Let's talk about something local real quick while I have you for a few more minutes here. Chris Putnam from Dallas Express, what did you see while you were embedded? Do you have an explanation on why the demographics for this skewed so old? All right. Chris Putnam, DallasExpress.com is his website. It's a fantastic newspaper, part of the daily rotation on what I do for James Show Prep. I appreciate your time, sir. All right, now coming back to our top story of the day is this Iran situation. Let's talk about where we draw the line here, because you don't want to be figuring it out in real time. You want to already know what you think is too far. And where I draw the line, I think let's start off with no boots on the ground. Does everyone agree that we don't want any American troops on the ground in Iran? We don't want an amphibious invasion. We don't want any scouts there. We don't want any advisors. We don't want any peacekeepers. We don't want anyone just there for humanitarian aid purpose. No, none. Do we all agree with that? Now, secondly, where do I draw the line? I don't like the idea of us shooting missiles from our boats or our missile launchers or our facilities. I don't mind selling them to Israel, and they, hey, here's the missile you need. It's X amount of dollars. If you need a line of credit, cool. Maybe we'll do a Lend-Lease program. But I don't like getting directly involved. I'm quite comfortable just selling Israel whatever weapons they need. If they need some intelligence, do we have to put people on the ground in there? Can we still follow our regular, just whatever intelligence we have? Yeah, we'll share it with you. We're not going to do anything special to get it. We're not going to be sending in undercover CIA guys or the Delta Force or something to go get intelligence. No, it'll just be the same old hands off, maybe some drones, maybe some satellites, maybe skimming some of the data that's floating through their fiber optic cables. But I find our unease in this situation stems from Congress just refusing to declare war anymore. You hear that we haven't officially declared war since World War II, but we have had something similar to that. Like when we went into Afghanistan, there was a bill that was called something to the effect of the congressional authorization of military force in Afghanistan. Now, if that's not a declaration of war, I don't know what is. Why don't they just call that a declaration of war? Now, if you try and answer your own rhetorical question, you come up with a political answer, and that stinks. Because if the war goes south, you don't want someone being on the hook for saying, oh, yeah, I supported that war. It's something that'll be used against them. It's something that'll be thrown in their face. Same reason they like all these omnibus bills, and they'll vote for them, even though there's a ton of stuff in there that their voters, the people they're representing, their constituents would find abhorrent. Well, they can get away with it for political purposes, just like they're getting away with, oh, we're not going to declare war. We will, fund it, and we will have bills that go through the House and the Senate, and it'll be called the Authorization for Military Use in Iran. But if the Iran war goes south, if it turns into sour milk, they can keep their hands clean politically, and they don't have to worry about what? Getting beat upside the head with it at the next debate. That's terrible. We have to do better. But I do like the idea of we can maybe squeeze Iran, because it seems like the ultimate goal for Donald Trump is to get some regime change without any boots on the ground, without having to escalate, without having to do an occupation or land any of our forces on the ground. Can we do that? Can we get a real change? Because so many problems are solved if Iran gets better leadership, gets a better system of governance, if they drop this whole theocratic garbage. Because, the Iran funding terror goes away, which means the Houthi rebels go away. Hamas pretty much goes away. Hezbollah neutered as well. The ISIS rebels that were in the hinterlands of Syria, gone. The bad actors that are keeping Libya and Egypt on their heels, gone. But also there's some bigger macroeconomic things that will happen, because who else will sell oil to China or North Korea if we want to put sanctions on them or blockade them? If everybody's in the same oil pool and no one's a rogue actor like Iran, we could really crunch just about anyone diplomatically by squeezing oil if Iran becomes a partner instead of an adversary. Right now, the number one buyer of Iranian oil, China, and they get it on a huge discount because of the sanctions. So I'm pretty optimistic about where we're going to be a year from now. Let's just see, because I think we actually might find out in about a month or so where this is going to go. Coming up, though, on the James Show, this Iran-Israel war does have the price of oil going up. You'll hear RT Trevino from the Crude Truth podcast predict if this is going to hurt you at the gas pump. That's next. 800-288-9227, 800-288-9227. I'm James Parker on News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM WBAP. Hey there, welcome to the James Show. I'm James Parker on News Talk 820 93.3 FM WBAP. Now, we know Iran and Israel have a conflict that's going to end up in the history books, but how does this affect you? Well, the first and most immediate way is probably going to be at the pump. We've already seen a small spike in the price of oil since this whole thing popped off, and my next guest can share a little more depth on that. RT Trevino from the Crude Truth podcast and also Pecos Country Energy. Welcome back to the James Show. And what do you think? I know you don't have a crystal ball, kind of an impossible question, but how bad do you think it's going to get, RT? Well, RT, you brought up the biblical history between Israel and Iran. They were actually pretty friendly in biblical times. The Persians were the ones that brought them out of exile from Babylon and let them rebuild the city and gave them about a millennia of religious freedom there. So, when you bring up the Bible, they were both characters in the Bible, but they were a lot more friendly back then. So let's talk about from your side of the equation here, the oil patch from Texas. Generally speaking, when prices go up just a little bit, that's kind of good for y'all. All right, we're talking with RT Trevino from the Crude Truth podcast and Pecos Country Energy. Are consumers, the people listening, are they going to see the price of gas go up because of this? What effect would it have on the worldwide oil market if Iran became a good player and they didn't have to worry about all these sanctions and selling extra cheap to China, and they could just be a regular guy that's just contributing to the global market? All right. Well, RT Trevino, if prices get too high, we're going to blame you, okay? Just having fun. Just a joke. All right. What's coming up on the Crude Truth podcast? Okay. Well, a lot to look forward to. This is RT Trevino from Pecos Country Energy, and his podcast is called The Crude Truth. Brilliant name for an oil-based podcast. Thank you very much, RT. All right. Let me ask you some of the same questions I was asking my last two guests. Like, where do you draw the line on this Israel-Iran war? Do you want us to support it even if it costs, say, more than $1 trillion or $200 billion, which is about what we spent on Ukraine, give or take a few billion, as funny as that sounds? Would you still be okay with the Israel-Iran war if it doubled the price of your gasoline at the pump? Would you still be okay with our activities over in the Middle East if it slowed down our economy? I just want to hear where you draw the line. I personally, I like being just the supplier for Israel and not getting any more involved in that. No direct strikes from us. We'll just maybe supply some weapons and intelligence. And if it doesn't cost too much, I'm kind of okay. But where do you draw the line? 800-288-9227. I'm James Parker on News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM WBAP. Well, hey there, fellow Texans. Welcome back to the James Show. It's News Talk 820 93.3 FM WBAP. Have you heard of the Brown Berets? Garrett, I know you've heard of the Brown Berets now, but you hadn't heard of them before, like yesterday, right? Okay. I think the older parts of our WBAP listening audience has a hand up on this because the Brown Berets are sort of the paramilitary arm of what's called the Chicano movement. Now, the word Chicano is something that we probably all are familiar with. If you're from Texas, transplants might be scratching their head. But just generally speaking, Chicanos are people with the phenotypes of what is normally called Hispanic, kind of inaccurately, but they're American. And that is like 70% of San Antonio counts as Chicano. Yes, they have darker skin and they have black hair and they look like they are a mix of white and indigenous peoples, but they are just as American as myself or Garrett or any black American who happens to be born here as well. And so, I'm kind of familiar with this because that's what my grandfather called himself. He looked Hispanic, but he's from Texas. He was a dark guy, dark hair, but he's American. Never lived over there. In fact, his parents didn't live over there. Well, his mom may have been from Nuevo Laredo, just across the river. But without getting into too much detail, it has sort of persisted since then, more in the background as the civil rights movement kind of died down in the 70s. You know, like what happened to the Black Panthers? Did they really go away? Not really. What happened to the Klan? Did they really go away? Yeah, for the most part. But I guess there's still some idiots out there somewhere wearing their bed sheets. Well, the Brown Berets have actually done a better job evolving. You know, they're kind of like the brown part of the Black Panther Party, the brown equivalent of that for Chicanos, Hispanic people. And I like the term, actually, Chicano is preferable to Hispanic because there's plenty of people who qualify as Hispanic and they have blonde hair and blue eyes and they're paler than I am. They're 100% black and they can count as Hispanic. So I like this term Chicano here because it involves the nuance that we need. What about these people who do have heritage that isn't 100% European or overwhelmingly European? What if it's this mix? Because that's what, Mexican people, I love when they do the studies on it and they do like the genetic testing. As far as like the average goes throughout the population of Mexico, they are a pretty even mix of European ancestry and native ancestry. But the Brown Berets in their current form do one thing that I think you wouldn't agree with. Kind of a pain in the butt. Go follow them on Instagram. Go follow them on Facebook. Go follow them on whatever your preferred social media platform is. And you'll see there's a group called Brown Berets DFW. And they put up alerts whenever ICE is spotted, whenever ICE is about to do a raid or they pull up in trucks, they get online and they start alerting their network to get the word out so illegals can escape ICE actions. Now, the question comes, at what point are you interfering with law enforcement? Should it be legal for groups like this to share what they see with the intent of helping people escape from the law? Or is this just protected free speech? Now, it is kind of protected free speech if they take, hey, there was an ICE raid, and they wait until the ICE raid's over, and then they publish that information. It is also protected speech if they just share what they saw, and it just so happened to maybe help someone escape the law. But there's no doubt they're doing this with the intent of helping people escape the law. So what does that make the Brown Berets? Is this a felonious group? Is this a racket? You see the Puff Daddy trial, apparently paying some male prostitute in advance and flying him to Vegas, crossing state lines, and doing it with a company credit card, a Bad Boy Entertainment credit card. That's a racket. That's racketeering. Those are RICO charges. Well, what about this? They have a whole organization that overtly claims to be helping people escape justice. And we've reached out to them. I was trying to get a spokesman for Brown Berets DFW on the show. I would love to have them on. I'll be playing a clip from one of their leaders, Esperanza, coming up. But also, Beau French is someone who has called these guys out. And Beau French actually had the Texas Tribune try and run him into the ground during the last election cycle. They went through his Twitter feed, his X feed, and they're like, look, he uses the word. And I'm sorry, this within FCC rules to say this. I am not saying this. I am just repeating it. They found the word gay, retard, homo, and then there were a couple other things that are totally offensive. I would never use them myself. I wouldn't call anybody any of those words. But they were trying to get him canceled through some politically correct complaints like that. Now, I think it's beneath the dignity of the president of the Tarrant County GOP to be using inflammatory language like that that's going to be so easily picked apart and probably push people away. But I'm not going to sit here and tell you I'm wildly offended by it and I think he should lose his job. However, the contention between the two of them continues to this day. And the Brown Berets put out a video trying to throttle Beau French again. Well, Beau French is going to be on my show next. He's been on a few times, Tarrant County GOP leader right now. And I want to get his side of the story because I heard the side of the story from the Brown Berets. I'll play Esperanza and her Instagram video calling him out, and then you're going to hear Beau French's immediate response to that. But the larger question is, I think absolutely this is criminal, probably felonious, to have a network that's intentionally alerting illegals of ICE raids. What do you think? 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. Beau French next on The James Show. News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. Hey there, welcome to the James Show, News Talk 820 93.3 FM WBAP. Beau French is the president of the Tarrant County GOP. And there's been a lot of fuss about my next guest, Beau French, a returning guest, friend of the show, Beau French, coming back on. And I think this all stems from you calling out some brown berets that got in trouble after the Monday protest. Some guy was handing out gas masks or something. Let's assume the people listening know nothing about this conflict. How would you explain it to them? Right. I don't know them. Who's that? Okay, now let's fast forward to today. Did you see the post from the Brown Berets 2 days ago on Instagram? We, oh, well, good, because you got mentioned. This is going to be great. I want to get your response to this. Now, this is going to take 2 minutes, but we have time, and I want you to give your first visceral response. This is Esperanza. She's wearing one of the berets. She's got like military fatigues on or whatever, but here we go.
Good afternoon. This is Esperanza with the Dallas Brown Berets. I just wanted to make a quick response to a statement that was made by the Tarrant County GOP chair, Beau French.
That's you.
It was pretty concerning and inflammatory, so I just want to make some corrections to the inaccuracies there. A little bit of fact checking, if you will.
Ooh.
Mr. French, first and foremost, thank you so much for mentioning the Dallas Brown Berets. We definitely try to get our name out there in any way possible, just so that people can hear who we are, what the causes are, hear the voices of the people. And you mentioning us definitely helped pique that interest. So again, thank you so much for promoting. As far as the inaccuracies, we'll start off with the easiest one. You mentioned that I, Esperanza Tamio, am the leader of the local local Brown Beret group, which is the Dallas Brown Berets. That is inaccurate. I am a leader. I'm one of many.
Oh my gosh, let's just pause it right there. Why would you lie about the Brown Berets in such an egregious fashion? All right, that's an easy joke. We continue.
Have many leaders from various walks of life because we emphasize the fact that representation is key to a successful community. For the other inaccuracies, you mentioned and tied us into the arrest of the activist in Los Angeles during the peaceful protesting, Mr. Alejandro Orellana. You mentioned that he was a brown beret, and that is inaccurate. As far as we understand and as far as we know, he is not a brown beret. However, he is a very strong Chicano activist, and he is the vanguard of his neighborhood. We stand on ground for him 100%. We stand behind him and everything he stands for.
All right, I don't know what she's talking about there. Your criticism of the Brown Berets in Los Angeles, explain that. Well, and it all seems to be based on race here because they are citing, even if you're an American, born in America, raised in America, never lived in Mexico, as long as you share the phenotypes of the people that are just generally, labeled Hispanic, they're on the same team, whether you're Mexican or American, as long as you're of La Raza, the race, they have your back. So there's a ugly little racial tint to this group. Do these racial groups never want to get together and like reduce the size of government or like cut the Department of Education? Why are they always communist? Anyway, we continue with the Brown Berets calling out Beau French.
He was out there giving face shields to his people and sacrificing himself to ensure their safety while they exercised their legal rights. He had the backbone to stand up for his people, and we will always back that up. When it comes to the Dallas PD, and you're discussing protesting against them, what happened on Monday night, June 9th, we have pictures, we have videos, we have firsthand eyewitness accounts, including myself and several others that were with me, of plainclothes and regular clothed officers instigating and assaulting peaceful protesters without cause. You had trigger happy.
Now, why is she talking to you about this? Did you make some sort of complaint I didn't see? All right, we're talking with Beau French, Tarrant County GOP president. You got another segment in you? I want to get the rest, your response to the rest of this video coming up. And then also ask you the same question I'm going to be asking the guy listening to us after you're done. Should this group or anyone be allowed to post ICE sightings on social media with the specific intent of helping people escape ICE raids? 800-288-9227, 800-288-9227. We continue with Beau French next on The James Show. News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM WBAP. Hey, homeowners. James Parker here for Blue Ribbon Roofing. Finally, we're going like a whole day without anyone in the WBAP area getting rain. That doesn't mean you're out of the woods here. Your roof has taken a beating in 2025. This has been one of the worst years for storms in recent history here. And look, all it takes is just one good gust of wind or one good hailstorm, and your roof is going to be compromised. And if you don't catch it quick, this is the kind of problem that can explode into even bigger costs that might not get covered by your insurance, but that might not be something that you can as easily afford as getting that roof taken care of now. And look, the peace of mind's absolutely free. You call Blue Ribbon Roofing, they'll come out, they'll inspect your roof, and they don't charge you anything. I know they did it for me. Go to blueribbondfw.com. You'll schedule a time for a guy to come out with a ladder, gets on your roof, take some pictures. The whole thing took about, they say an hour, but for me it took 40 minutes. And then you get a folder with materials and some info on the brands and the colors and the types of shingles and everything you needed to go to move forward with the decision on what you'll do about your roof. Does it need to be patched? Do you need a whole new roof? If you do need help with the insurance company, they can help you do the claim, or if you're not happy with your claim, they can refile it and maybe get you a better result for your insurance company. Look, getting a new roof can be a pain, but blueribbondfw.com is your best bet on making it as painless as possible. So go to blueribbondfw.com, schedule your free inspection today. blueribbondfw.com. Hey there, welcome back to the James Show, News Talk 820 FM, WBAP. We are continuing with Beau French. He's the Tarrant County GOP president. And there's been a little social media back and forth between himself and a local group called Brown Beret DFW. Now, one of the things that the Brown Berets do that I see on social media is when they see that there is an ICE raid going down, they pull out where it's happening on a map. They take a screenshot, they post it, and they warn people, spread this news. ICE is in the area. Keep yourself safe. And that sounds like interfering with law enforcement officers, Beau. Right, and one of the cases, in fact, in this back and forth between you and Esperanza from the Brown Berets DFW, what was the case that the DA in Los Angeles had announced earlier this week that he's going to be charging some guy with handing out riot gear or handing out face shields to rioters, which there's no peaceful protest excuse for handing out, protective body armor other than we are inciting a riot. Mm-hmm. Well, this is a turnabout because, they've been getting away with breaking the laws of immigration this entire time. Now they want to get away with breaking the laws on interfering with ICE raids. They want to get rid of breaking the laws when it comes to inciting violence and inciting riots. So with that, let's get back to the message that was left for you a couple days ago by Brown Berets DFW. This is Esperanza continuing.
Rookies out there who didn't know what they were doing, got scared for no reason, and just went to town on the people. One of the things that I do want to address is that you addressed us as extremists. This couldn't be further from the truth. Yes, we will stand up and stand guard.
Oh, and if you're just joining us, when she says you, she's talking to Beau French. So
for the people, and we will always protect our communities first and foremost. But we are a grassroots community organization. We have been out there taking care of the people. We've been trying to help them in any way possible. We've been doing projects in the neighborhoods. We know and we hear and understand the needs of the people.
How does that make them not extremists, bro?
Something that you can have with your constituents if you stepped outside of your bubble. Go talk to the people, see what the people need, see what support they need. They don't need this fear mongering. They don't need people's, you and I both know a true leader doesn't rule by fear. A true leader leads by example.
Beau French, why do you rule the Tarrant County GOP with fear? All right, one more. One. All right, Bo French, I'm going to squeeze in one more clip, but we're running out of time, so make your response fast to this.
Be better. Good afternoon.
That
This
was
is
it. Be better. Do you stand by your claim that Brown Berets DFW is an extremist organization? Well, I thoroughly enjoyed the back and forth there. That was a good little exercise. Bo French, Tarrant County GOP president, thank you very much for your time. How do they find your work online? All right. Well, that was good. And look, I'd like to reiterate, if a representative from Brown Berets DFW would like to come on the show, I would really love to have Esperanza on, who you heard in her clip from Instagram. Get in touch with the James Show. We'd love to have you on. Coming up next, you're going to hear Arnold. Arnold was on The View, and he tried to talk some sense into them about immigration, and they just don't get it. 800-288-9227. I'm James Parker on News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM WBAP. Hey there, welcome to the James Show, News Talk 820 93.3 FM, WBAP. You know, it's kind of puzzling here. That group we were just talking about, Brown Berets DFW, they post ice sightings on social media and warning people, look out, make sure your friends and family are safe. Get the word out. Here comes ice. They were spotted here. Can anyone confirm? Go check it out. And it's not like it's hidden. It's for public. Go to look. I see them on Instagram more than anything else. I'm sure they have a social media footprint beyond that. But that seems like it's kind of obviously illegal. They're doing it with the specific intent of disrupting ice raids, of helping people to escape ice raids. It's a lot like the judges that have already gotten in trouble for harboring or hiding or allowing the escape of illegal immigrants. I find that absolutely fascinating. And I don't know if our Team Blue neighbors really are surprised that we're okay with illegal immigrants being deported, or if this is just a front for the other Team Blue members that happen to be watching the show. But I think you would have really enjoyed this one little clip from The View. Not watching the whole thing for sure, but Arnold Schwarzenegger was on The View yesterday. And of course, his status is one of the most famous immigrants in American history. Caught him a little off guard. They were like, hey, man. I think they thought he was going to be a fellow traveler. Hey, man, aren't you totally appalled and disgusted by the horrible way that Trump is treating these sweet immigrants? And they didn't quite get the answer they expected.
Did you have a visceral reaction to what they're doing, what ICE is doing when you see the videos of it?
Well, I tell you, you said that the immigrant, I'm so proud and happy that I was embraced by the American people like that. I mean, imagine I came over here with the age of 21, with absolutely nothing. And then to create a career like that. I mean, in no other country in the world could you do that. Yeah. Every single thing, if it's my bodybuilding career, if it's my acting career, becoming governor, the beautiful family that I've created, all of this is because of America.
That's true.
And so this is why I'm so happy to see firsthand that this is the greatest country in the world, and this is the land of opportunity.
All right. So he didn't go, oh, Trump is treating them like subhuman animals. He's literally Hitler. It's kind of what they were hoping for. They didn't quite get it, but they were still kind of pushing him on that. You know, like, isn't it terrible the way that they're being treated? Isn't it awful how they have to live in fear? And even as one of the squishiest Republicans you have ever seen in your life, he kept his foot down on this one. About 2 minutes later in the same interview, here he is saying, some of this behavioral issue is on the part of the illegal immigrants here.
I just think the world of the great kind of a history that we have with immigrants in America. But the key thing also is at the same time that we got to do things legal. That is the important thing, you know. So you got to do things legal. And those people that are doing illegal things in America and that are foreigners, they are not smart.
Boom.
Because when you come to America, you're a guest. And you have to behave like a guest. Like when I go to someone's house and I'm a guest, then I will do everything I can to keep things clean and to make my bed and to do everything that is the right thing to do rather than committing a crime or being abusive or something like that. So that doesn't really work in this country.
Yeah,
so
you're trying to interrupt
this. The important thing is when you become an immigrant, to think about, okay, I go to America because I want to use America for the great opportunities that America has.
But you could see all their faces. It's like when you're in the restaurant and it's time for your food to come out. And so then the plates come out and the waiter comes by and there's like the sizzling fajita plates and they set it right down next to your table. And it's the table next to you who's getting their food. Like they were just they were expecting something awesome. Like their face went from, oh, good, my fajitas are here to, oh, it's going to the next. That's not what I wanted. I wanted my food and I wanted it now. So I'm surprised they didn't cut to commercial. But coming up on the James Show, you're going to hear The View. Did any of this sink in? Like, how would you respond to a former governor, a legal immigrant who went through the whole thing, became a governor of a state, and has been, very open-minded and sympathetic to your cause? And when he is blowing your immigration narrative out of the water, how do they respond? You'll hear that next. And then I got some good callers lining up because we've got some people with some hot opinions on folks posting ice sightings around DFW on social media and helping illegal immigrants escape law enforcement actions. That sounds like a pretty obvious felony, right? 800-288-9227, 800-288-9227. I'm James Parker on News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM WBAP. Hey there, fellow Texans. Welcome back to the James Show. News Talk 820 93.3 FM WBAP. Immigration's a hot topic. Continues to be so. And they were talking about it on The View yesterday with Arnold Schwarzenegger. And he shocked him a little bit because they threw him the ball, metaphorically speaking, rhetorically speaking. Hey, how appalled are you by the way immigrants are being treated under this current administration? And he's like, well, look, I love this country, and immigrants need to respect its laws, and they need to behave like a guest in someone else's house. You know, keep things clean, make your bed, don't complain, and be grateful. And so after he didn't whip them around, he didn't insult anybody. There's no pejoratives. He didn't throw any rhetorical Molotov cocktails. But it's fun to watch, and I know you enjoy this too, watching these people work out the cognitive dissonance in their head. They're like, wait, this isn't an immigrant, and he doesn't think Trump's literally Hitler. Yikes. How do they explain this to themselves? Because they're never going to go, oh, well, maybe my worldview's wrong. Well, maybe they're just enforcing immigration laws as they're written on the books, and there's no real injustice done here. No, they can't say that. So you're going to hear like a double team of Whoopi and Sonny Hostin, and I think you'll hear another one chirping in there. This is their response to Arnold saying what is basic common sense to you and me. It's just a wild turn of events for the ladies of The View.
90% of the people who come here are trying to do the right thing.
They're less likely to
And
commit crime.
Hang on. No, she's just making up a statistic. 90% are trying to do the right thing. How do you even survey for that? Or you put a microphone in front of someone. Are you trying to do the right thing? 100% will say yes. So first, she's just manufacturing the statistic out of the air. Sonny Hostin's about to pop in with, yes, immigrants are less likely to commit crimes than citizens. Okay, you're conflating legal immigrants and illegal immigrants. It's a very obvious intellectual shortcut into actually dealing with the situation on the ground in reality, but also for the illegal immigrants that do commit crimes. You're still sticking up for them. Anyway, here we go.
90% of the people who come here are trying to do the right thing.
They're less likely to commit crimes.
And it's and a lot of what's happening right now is people are getting snatched who shouldn't be snatched out of the country. People who have visas, people who have all those things. So we want all the right people. We don't want people who are doing bad stuff.
But they are less likely, immigrants are much less likely to commit crimes in this country than actually American-born citizens. And the other thing I just wanted to say is that Governor Newsom did not ask for the National Guard to come to, the federal government to come to California. There are 9,000 local law enforcement officers in California. Did he really?
Everybody has to send them the law.
I mean, look.
That's so great. I could just listen to that all day. I love when they're presented with facts and a guess that they didn't expect, and you got to hear them try and wheel and deal in real time because they didn't have time to prepare for that. They thought Arnold Schwarzenegger was going to be on their side. They thought he was going to, be deferential toward the non-Americans since he's a non-American. But make no mistake, there is a Grand Canyon of difference between the way the American people feel about legal immigrants and illegal immigrants, and to conflate the two is just dishonest. Lawrence in Grapevine, you're on WBAP. Go.
Man, my brother, you said a mouthful when you say the way they try to articulate their argument, just outright dishonest. And I'm tired of my Latino brothers and sisters trying to equate their plight with the plight of African Americans. We got to keep it real. You people, y'all invade the border. We were brought here in chains. Don't mix the two. This is why black people ain't out here supporting that foolishness. If you're going to come to this country, you come through the front door. Nobody is going to say nothing to you. But you're going to come through the back door and make demands? Hey, I don't support the illegal immigration, the gay agenda, endless wars. I'm pro-American. I'm pro-family. And I don't see nothing that these Democrats, I call them Luciferians, because you got to be rolling with the devil to promote what these illegals are doing. That little black girl, Air Force cadet, up here in Grapevine, killed by two illegals from Venezuela. God help the illegals if they harm one of my family members, because you know what? Right is right, wrong is wrong. We are all law-abiding citizens. We all do the right thing. Do you think I'm going to put up with somebody coming here illegally doing the wrong thing, perpetrating violence on my family? This is what these idiots on the left don't get. We are pro-America. We pro-law enforcement. We support the men and women in blue and in the green. And these doggone illegals, they come in here to take over. They ain't coming here for a helping hand, because if they would, they'd do like the people from Nepal. They'd do like the people from Pakistan, from India. All the people who come here and do it the right way. They mad as hell at these damn illegals. So the left, hey, man, you know what? I don't even like talking about this no more, because you know what? The whole conversation is disingenuous. You cannot come to no country and get away with what we let these rascals get away with. You can't do it. Go to Brazil and burn the Brazilian flag and fly the American flag. You'll be coming back in pieces. They'll kill you. All the things that they doing, come on, brother. You know, I'm tired, because right is right and wrong is wrong. And color ain't got nothing to do with it. And I'm tired of them trying to say their plight is the same as black people. No. And I don't want to hear no more doggone illegals say what they built in this country. This country was built by slaves, African-American slaves. It was not built by Mexicans, illegals. They couldn't take it. And here's one for the books. When was the last time in our history have mass hangings of Mexicans or migrants happen? Never. Since when did the Ku Klux Klan go after illegals? Never happened. So these rascals coming here trying to play that sympathy card, hey, brothers, right back. If you ain't pro-America, if you ain't pro-law enforcement, and if you hate on us and don't want to do the right thing, get out. Get out. That's just simple. We ain't got no argument. You go to you and we do us.
That's a great call. That's Lawrence and Grapevine. Now, there has been some anti-immigrant violence and hangings and lynchings scattered throughout American history. It's not like the number is zero, but not like they went after black people with the Klan. He's absolutely right on that point. I just don't want to get any fact checkers saying, well, no, they hung a bunch of Chinese people in San Francisco in 1861 or whatever. Just speaking in absolutes, I have to put disqualifiers on there so people don't call me a hack. But no, the points you were making, all correct. And look, white people kind of bristle at that too. When people say try and co-opt the civil rights movement and act like they're plight. It's just like black Americans. No, it's not. No, it's not. There was never signed. They didn't build the separate bathrooms on every single restaurant in the Jim Crow South to make Mexicans poo in a different room. They did that to black people. What is their deal? Like, in hindsight, that is so weird. Like, what you can't relieve yourself in the same room as someone who's a different race. That's Democrats were so weird now, but they were even worse 100 years ago. Believe that. All right, your thoughts on these groups helping illegals escape ICE raids? 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. How come they're not getting charged with felonies? That's more calls coming up on the James Show. News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. Hey there, welcome to the James Show, News Talk 820 93.3 FM WBAP. If you missed my interview with the Tiger King on Monday's show, it is now waiting for you. Find the WBAP Facebook page or YouTube channel or somewhere on social media. It's out there. We're talking about immigration right now. A lot going on with the local Brown Berets, DFW, alerting people from ICE raids. They got in a back and forth with the president of the Tarrant County GOP, Beau French, who was on the show earlier. And now I'm just throwing the question out there after we heard Arnold Schwarzenegger on The View. How far are these people going to support illegals? People who aren't supposed to be here anyway. People who are breaking the law. Well, it's not a criminal penalty, so it's not technically illegal. It's a civil penalty, and it's still illegal. But these people that are alerting social media of ICE raids, how is that not interfering with law enforcement? How is that not felonious behavior in itself? 800-288-9227. Andrew in Georgetown, you're on WBAP.
Good afternoon. What happens if you were to flip it around? I'll just use in Austin, if you just say Rainey Street or 6th Street, if I was just to call on a Thursday night and say, hey, there's going to be ICE raids at several of the restaurants. I'm not sure exactly which ones they are, but there's going to be ICE raids. Would that be illegal?
I don't know. I'd like it. See if
everybody did that, I mean, how many people might not show up to work?
Well, the thing is it coming from a group whose modus operandi, like their mission, is to protect people from ICE raids, or is this just Andrew in Georgetown putting a rumor on Facebook?
This is Andrew from Georgetown putting a rumor on Facebook to get illegals not to go to those businesses. To go home during that way and punish the businesses.
Okay, so there's not actually an ICE raid happening. You're just doing this to throw a hurdle in their normal day?
Absolutely.
Oh, well then absolutely not. That's not illegal. You're not interfering with the law enforcement operation.
Okay. Well, I was just wondering. I mean, imagine if people started doing that and people didn't start showing up to work.
I like the way you think, Andrew. That's pretty.
Yeah,
that's pretty good.
Any ideas out there? But,
all right. Hey, Andrew gets a field goal. That's 3 points for Andrew. On that, Garrett.
Show, buddy. You get a touchdown every time.
Oh, thank you so much. You're very kind. That's Andrew in Georgetown, kicking butt. Curtis in Plano. You're on WBAP. Go.
Hey, James. Thanks for taking my call. I'm just concerned. I have an acquaintance here in the Denton County and Frisco areas where he works, a Vietnamese community. And this man's been here for over 40 years. His grandfather and he came over with his grandfather was one of the boat people that escaped South Vietnam after the war. Well, he came over as a minor. I don't know what kind of trouble he got into. He got in trouble with the law, was arrested, and had deportation orders at that time, back in the early 80s, to go back to Vietnam. Well, the North Vietnamese would not allow any boat people to be shipped back into Vietnam. So he's been here for over 40 years. Has to check in with ICE, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, annually, and just maintains contact with them. Well, last Tuesday, he went for his annual appointment, and they took him. They arrested him, and they sent him to a facility here in town. And he's in confinement, waiting deportation. And he's been an active member of the community for over 40 years, never had any more influence or problems with the law. And I don't even know what the thing was that he did back, when he was a minor. But, I mean, this is a gross miscarriage of justice for someone that was, arrested as a minor.
Why? Hang on. Why is it
done time?
You're coming to the conclusion it's a gross miscarriage of justice.
I don't. Well, because obviously he did serve something. I don't know what happened back then because I never heard the base of the story. But I know now that he's checked in annually for 40 years and never had a deportation summons before. And now all of a sudden, I just think the pendulum is swinging, and maybe there may be a group of community members that are getting swept away that may or may not deserve this kind of treatment. I mean, if
well,
you've been
he
here
sounds like
40
he doesn't
years
fit
and-
the regular template of what we imagine when we think of criminal illegal aliens. And
Exactly,
you know,
exactly.
okay, so let me ask you, if you think this is a gross
Yeah.
miscarriage of justice, what is the statute of limitations on something like that?
I don't know. See, I think maybe he's even a green card carrier. He's just not a citizen, you know. So I'm not sure. I mean, I wish I knew what crime was committed, you know. But as a minor, you know.
Well, see, it sounds emotional
when
when
you did something as a minor. You know, would you want to be held account 40 years later? So, oh, you're going to jail for it now. You know, it's just kind of strange.
Yeah, so the thing that caught my attention there is the extra adjectives in there. It wasn't a miscarriage of justice; it was a gross miscarriage of justice, and so
Well,
it felt like
potentially.
But an emotional reaction to something that I was trying to just put in black and white. Okay, what's the statute of limitations on that? If they've been here for 40 years and had a clean record, and they only had one crime 40 years ago, should they be allowed to stay? Like, what would your rules be then? How would you draw the map?
Exactly. I have no idea, but I just feel like if that kind of precedent is set for people in that kind of situation, I would support Trump 100%. I support ICE 100%. And it's just, if people like that get swept up in this dragnet, I think they could lose, popular support pretty quick. If people, that were otherwise,
Yeah, I think most people are okay with that. I think most people are okay with if you haven't become a naturalized citizen in the last 40 years and you do have a criminal record, then you know what? They're okay with that baby getting thrown out with the bathwater, because the rules that we're working on, if you have a criminal record and you're not a citizen, you got to go. And this is probably the best case scenario of a guy that, America would probably be better off having him stay. But if losing him means we get to lose all the rest of them, I'm pretty sure most of America is okay with that.
Yeah, I'm not so sure. I mean,
hey, you're definitely not.
Because they're painting it. No, I'm just saying. They're painting it.
I gotta go
like
though,
we're getting
Curtis.
rid of new people. And
no,
then
I'll
some
grant
of
you
these
this.
people aren't
I'll
new
grant you
people.
this. You're not the only person who thinks like that. The ladies on The View think like that. A lot of people that I talk to on a very shallow level say similar things. I hear a lot of people on TV saying that, other radio stations saying that. So you're not alone. But I think for the people who supported Trump based on his immigration policy, this is an acceptable loss. 800-288-9227. Coming up next, tariffs are starting to affect your drug prices. How bad is it going to be? Bill Hennessy, Dr. Bill, will tell you next on The James Show. News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. Bob Lavelle, Home Marketing Services on The James Show. This is the guy you need to call when you're tired of paying rent and having nothing to show for it when you move out. If you buy a house, all those payments you make actually build wealth. And when you move, you get to take a chunk of that with you. And I'm surprised at how late in life people will wait to buy their first house, Bob.
Well, it's like you said in your last little bit you were doing with the discussion with the gentleman. Sometimes it's an acceptable loss. What is the break point for an acceptable loss here? If you have a house when you're young and you do it at 20, 25, 30, is that okay? Sure. If you wait until you're 50, 55, like my lady that listens to you all the time, she's closing on Friday. She's in her mid-50s. That's okay. But it really only matters to you. I mean, if you pay rent for 20, 30 years and you walk away with zero, is that acceptable to you? I'm not going to try to change people's minds. But if they really want to find out about these are the rules that you can actually get away with doing some cool things, maybe getting that 4.5% rate still because some builders are doing it, or maybe you pay the 6.5% or whatever it is because that's cheaper than renting at $2,000 a month every month for the next 3, 4, 5 years you're waiting. So,
oh yeah,
what's your thought? Don't you think that makes sense? Acceptable loss is up to you.
Well, it's also accelerated that math. And when you're in a high inflation environment, let's just say inflation's been about 25% over the last 5 years total. That means if you bought a house at $400,000 5 years ago, if you turn around and sell it right now, you get $500,000 for it. Even if you barely chipped into the equity on your loan, you're walking away with the $100,000 and you didn't even really do anything. So that's the magic of home ownership. That's the magic of building wealth and equity and getting out of the rent race and calling Bob Lavelle at Home Marketing marketing services. 972-392-9595. 972-392-9595. Go to blessyourheart.com, or if you want to start crawling out of the financial hole that you've been in, call 972-392-9595. Make it happen, Bob. Thanks.
Amen, James.
Hey there, welcome to the James Show, News Talk 820-93.3 FM WBAP. You know, the tariffs are still happening in the background, even though it's not one of the top headlines. How is this affecting your drug prices? Well, I have the perfect guy to answer the question. Dr. Bill Hennessy from Care Guide is back on the James Show. Welcome back, Dr. Bill. Have we seen prices go up much so far? Well, we have the concern that so many of our drugs are made overseas, and so many of the places where our drugs are made are getting hit with tariffs, and so they're going to have to pass that along to the consumers. Well, why haven't we seen an increase yet? Okay. Yeah. Well, you know, I think about it. What are some of the big drug companies? There's Merck and there's Bayer, and I think aren't both of those German? Look at you. Was that your German accent? Well, who's the Irish group that's sending us name brand drugs? That is all news to me. I had no idea. All right. Well, then that's pretty much good news. What about all the concern about how so many drug precursors come from China and some of these other countries? We're talking with Bill Hennessy from Care Guide. CGASaves.com is his website, and he just helps people with their medical bills, keeping their healthcare costs low. Is there anything in the big, beautiful bill or some other iteration in DC that you have your eye on? Yeah. Right. All right, Dr. Bill Hennessy. For the people who are complaining about their drug prices right now, there's a lot of people listening who already have prescriptions, and they'd like to know if they can save any money on what they have going now. What would you tell them? Where do they start? Okay, that does sound crazy. All right, that all sounds like a pretty solid advice. Dr. Bill Hennessy, CGAsaves.com is his website. Care Guide is the name of his company. If you already have some big bills or you anticipate some big bills coming up, call him. That's what his company does. Thank you, Dr. Bill. All right. Coming up next on the James Show, I'm going to start a discussion that I think we'll have to continue on tomorrow's show. But there's a movement here to put Trump derangement syndrome in the book, the DSM-5, isn't that what they call it now? Of actual disorders, mental disorders. Now, it sounds like a funny thing, like the guy on the radio is making another bit, or it's funny to dunk on people who are deranged about Trump. But no, seriously speaking, it moves out of the realm of comedy into like a head scratcher here. And the creator of Dilbert, Scott Adams, will explain next on the James Show. Not live. He's just, I pulled one of his videos off of Twitter, and I can't stop thinking about it. I think you're going to love it. That's next, coming up on News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. Hey, welcome to the James Show. News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. So Scott Adams is the creator of Dilbert. He was on the show a few weeks ago when the surprise announcement of Joe Biden's advanced cancer diagnosis had a lot of people scratching their head. And he came out and shocked the world because he said, yeah, I have that. I that exact same cancer. I have stage 4 prostate cancer, which has spread to my bones. And he was making the case that for him, this was a long, drawn-out process. And it seems wildly unlikely that Joe Biden would just magically develop this late stage of a cancer in the last 4 months since he's been out of White House medical care. But that aside, we were all kind of shocked to know this guy has just a few months to live. In fact, he's probably going to die this summer. That's what he expects. And so he has sort of this clarity of thought now where when he puts out videos now, go check them out. And in his latest one, this was getting passed around. People were pulling out this little chunk from his live video yesterday. And I saw it live, and then I already knew I was going to talk about it on the show. And then I saw other people passing around. So this is going to be a conversation to be had here. Scott Adams, creator of Dilbert, explains why Trump derangement syndrome should be considered a real mental disorder. In fact, being put officially in the books as a legit mental disorder.
I would argue that we should see it as a mental disorder and that the elderly are just more prone to it, just like Alzheimer's and other stuff. And I saw a post by Meg Brock, who was asking the question on X, when is Trump derangement syndrome going to be officially added to the DSM-5 to make it an official diagnosis? And so I went to Grok to find out, is it already in the literature? And then Grok says it lacks defined symptoms, diagnostic criteria, or empirical evidence required for a legitimate disorder. To which I say, isn't it a lot like addiction? If I said to you, you have a drinking problem, how would you define it as a problem versus a hobby? And the answer is usually if it interferes with your life. So if your drinking has an impact on your life, as in you lose your job, you lose your relationships, you spend all your money, you wake up in a ditch, well, then you've got a drinking problem. If you had 2 drinks on the weekend with your friends and then took a Uber home, we would mostly say you're just somebody who has a hobby and you don't have a problem. But don't you think TDS is exactly like that? If somebody simply prefers a Democrat over Trump, I would say, oh, well, that's just a political preference. But if somebody is crying and shaking and they feel like he's going to become a king and he's going to lock people up in prison camps, isn't that interfering with your actual life and happiness? And wouldn't that be super easy to diagnose if you were a therapist? You could just say, does it affect your life? Do you wake up in the morning shaking and crying? If the answer is yes, then you've got a mental health disorder.
So I am a big fan of Dr. Drew Pinsky, and years ago when he was on Loveline, he used to have to explain this over and over and over. The line between when a hobby or something that you do for fun becomes an addiction. And that's perfect what Scott Adams, the creator of Dilbert, just explained there. In drinking, if you're losing your job because you're drinking, you probably have an addiction. And to put it in more sterile terms, continued use or continued behavior in the face of negative consequences is when it becomes a disorder. And so is it disrupting your life really is a pretty good metric. And when he said that yesterday, I thought of the audio I had played for you on Monday's show of a lady from the No Kings rally on Saturday.
I'm just so scared. I'm 74 years old. I worry about everything, and I just am so scared and upset, and I don't understand why people did voted for this person.
I mean, I kind of laugh at her, but she is having like some a loss of quality of life there, because if you're worried about a king, well, you're worried about something that's not real. You know, if you're worried about a wolf that's in the room with you, legit worry. If you're worried about a wolf and a wolf isn't in the room with you or within 100 miles of you, that's when you have a mental disorder. So if you think you're literally fighting Hitler and it's ruining your life, it's making you cry, you're scared to leave your house, you have changed your behavior otherwise for something that's not even true, I think he makes a pretty solid point. Now, I'm going to talk about this more in depth on tomorrow's show, but it'll be earlier in the show, so you'll probably miss it. It's a good excuse to come back and check out the podcast, because I think there's going to be a lot of people with some pretty strong opinions on whether or not Trump derangement syndrome could be a mental disorder. And I don't want to limit it to Trump. For you people who were crying or thinking that Obama is an antichrist and he was some paid-off Manchurian candidate who was basically a demon and it ruined your life, okay, this applies to you too. For all the people that thought George W. Bush was literally Hitler and Reagan was literally Hitler, this isn't Trump specific. But if you get so worked up over politics that you're crying into a Fox News camera on a Saturday instead of enjoying a Father's Day weekend with your family, you might just have a mental disorder. Stick around. Coming up next, the great one, Mark Levin. I'm James Parker. This has been The James Show on News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM WBAP.